Hey guys, and welcome back to Mini Urban Farm, a channel about urban homesteading in the suburbs. Today I am so excited because it is seed starting day. It is my favorite day of the season. So today we're going to be starting all of our seeds that do not need to be direct sown. We're going to be talking about a whole list of things. I have an entire notebook worth of information on how to start seeds. If it's your very first time, we're going to go in depth on everything that you need to start seeds. So yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so we are here at my seed starting table and I have a ton of information that we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to run through the list. I will leave timestamps in the description if you want to switch around or jump around to one topic or another. So we're going to talk about how I chose today to start seeds, like why today, why the middle of February, all of that. I'm going to talk about the supplies you're going to need, everything that you will need to start seeds from scratch, direct sowing versus starting seeds in containers. Like why would you direct sow? Why would you start seeds in containers? What's the difference? How you know which ones to start in containers, how you know which ones to start as direct sowed. I'll go through the list of things that I am planting out today versus the list of things that I will be direct sowing probably in a couple weeks from now. How you know how deep to plant your seeds, right? Because every seed requires a different depth. Some require like an inch, some require 1.5 inches, some require 1/4 inch. Some don't even need to be covered with soil. So we'll get into that, and how to finish it off by watering in your plants, watering from the top versus watering in the actual in the seed tray. So today I am going to go ahead and seed start. There we go. Today I'm going to go ahead and seed start all of these seeds that I have right here. All right. So my first item that I am going to start are my grape tomatoes. Now I do not have saved seeds from my grape tomatoes. I have little grape tomatoes themselves. I will be slicing these open and planting the seeds directly into a container and growing them like that. Now these are still growing on my existing plants. They are starting to die out, so they will be ripped up probably in the next week, 2 weeks or so. But these are just going to be planted directly like that into the container. I'm also going to be planting out my peach, my orange peach tomato and my Roma tomatoes, right? I've already opened this packet. And so I will be planting those out. I will be planting out my little finger eggplant from Baker Creek and my Genovese basil seeds, which I seed saved off of my last plant. I will be planting out some cayenne pepper that somebody gave me as a gift for my birthday. So I got this seed packet and that will be going in the garden today, or in the seed container, the seed start trays today. I will be growing some yellow squash for summer and some Black Beauty zucchini as well. And then I will be growing, and I'm really excited for these, my sour gherkin cucumbers. So these are tiny little cucumbers and they taste a little bit like lemon, I'm told. I've never grown these, so I'm really excited for that. I will be growing out my sweet peppers, Lessia peppers, and my Swiss chard. This is the Bright Lights Swiss chard, and they come in like all different colors, right? So some of them are green, but the majority of them are pink and yellow and orange, and they're just really pretty, and I feed them a lot to my chickens. For the full list of everything that I'm growing, I will link it above. I made a what I'm growing seed haul video with everything that will be in my garden, including all of my direct sown plants. But this is everything that I am starting in my greenhouse today. It is February 11th. Why did I choose today? So first off, I'm starting seeds super early in the morning. It's about 8 o'clock right now, and I do that first thing in the morning so that the seeds can have as much time to absorb the heat throughout the day before the nighttime comes and the temperatures drop. So I chose today because it is around 70 degrees right now. It's going to be in the 80s the next couple of days, or mid 70s or so, but basically because the lowest temperature for the next 10 days is not going to drop below 50 or so. That is super important because a lot of seeds cannot tolerate cold weather. Now in different zones, I know that you plant things out that require colder temperatures or hotter temperatures, but I'm in zone 9B here in Central Florida, so this is around the time where everyone is starting seedlings. I do not use any season extension tools. I do have this little mini greenhouse behind me here, but the temperature drops at night and that greenhouse does not keep warm. So basically I use that greenhouse just to keep the water off the plants when it rains, which it does quite a bit here. When it rains and the wind and all of that won't knock my seedlings out of their little containers, and they won't be flooded, and I'll be able to monitor the water. So that is really not a season extension tool. If you have season extension tools like a greenhouse or other ways to start seeds indoors or keep the plants warm, to keep the seeds warm, then yeah, you can go ahead and start your seeds earlier. But for me, this is when I'm starting my seeds because I'm going to be starting all of my seeds outside. Okay, so let's talk about the supplies that you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need some sort of a container, right? I don't know if you can see here behind me, but I have a whole bunch of containers. I personally use red Solo cups and basically whatever else I have saved throughout the years. So whenever I buy seed starts, right, from Home Depot or anything like that, I just save these. I wash them out a little bit and reuse them. The same thing if you have like little plastic containers like this. I think these were originally like little fruit cartons from the grocery store. I just popped some holes in them. You can see that they don't have any drainage holes, so that's very important. You do need something with drainage holes. I can go ahead and drill some holes in this as I did with the red Solo cups, right? You just poke some holes in it or use a drill bit and drill through the entire thing so that you have some drainage holes in these, or you reuse ones like I said from Home Depot that you buy plants in. These already come with drainage holes, so you can reuse these to start your plants. Now, I would really recommend staying away from clay pots or any paper pots, right? They do sell paper pots that you can start, and they kind of like the entire pot goes into the ground when you transplant out. The only problem with these and the paper pots is that they do dry out very, very quickly. So I live in a climate that gets extraordinarily hot very early in the season. So I want to make sure that my pots are keeping in as much moisture and water as possible for my seeds. So I never start seeds in this, and I do use some of the terracotta pots for decorative plants, but I try not to plant any vegetables in them. Alright, the second thing that you are going to need is seed starting soil. Now, I have an entire video that I did on how to make your own seed starting soil, all the ingredients you need. It's a super simple process. I will link the video up above, so if you want to make your own, you can go ahead and check that out. That is the one I use for starting all my seeds. However, you can also buy seed starting soil from Home Depot, from Lowe's, from your local nursery. They do start seed starting soil. The most important part about soil for starting seeds is that it's light and fluffy. You want something with a lot of peat moss in it or with a lot of coco coir in it, so that it doesn't prevent the roots from actually growing, and that it keeps in a lot of water and moisture for the plants. So if you have regular topsoil, don't use that to start your plants. You can start in like compost and stuff, but really the best recommendation is to start your seeds in a specific seed starting soil. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to need is, of course, your seeds. I would suggest deciding which seeds ahead of time. If you don't know which seeds you're starting, then you can definitely do a map of your garden, get that all figured out ahead of time, but you never want to get to your seed starting table and say, oh, which one should I be starting today? No, you should have a specific list of exactly what you're starting out, what's going in your garden. You should know those things before you get to your seed starting table. And I'll be sharing with you in just a minute here which ones exactly I will be starting today and which ones I will be saving for later to direct sow when it warms up a tiny bit. Alright, so the next item you're going to need is some sort of water, right? This is just a simple watering container from Home Depot. You can use a water hose, anything really that gets water into the plants. You want something that doesn't have like a very large downpour, so something like this, right? It has a few holes in it. They are tiny holes, so that's okay to water in some plants. With things that are a little bit smaller, like seeds that are very small, I'll go ahead and I'll take the water hose and I'll put it on the mist setting, and I'll just let that go over the container for a couple minutes just to make sure that everything is saturated. But with bigger seeds, I have no problem using something like this. Alright, so the next item that you can use, it's not something that's a requirement, but it's something that I choose to use, and it has really made a big difference in my garden since I've started using these, and they are seed starting trays, right? So these are, I don't know if the whole thing fits on camera here. There you go. So they are 10 by 20 trays. You can get them on Amazon. I'll link all the supplies that I've talked about in the description, so you can go ahead and find them. But these are 10-20 trays, and they actually do not have drainage holes, right? I don't know if you can see that, but there's no drainage holes in these. Right, so you would take the 10-20 tray and you would go ahead and put all of your containers in here, right? And then with the ones that have drainage holes, oh, I don't think you can see, oh, here we are. So these have drainage holes on the bottom. The trays do not have drainage holes. And what would happen is the roots, as they grow downward, you would water the inside of the tray and they would soak up water through the roots. So 10-20 trays are really optional, but I find that since I've been using them, it's much easier to water my plants instead of having to individually water every single one of my seed starts. I'm going to be starting about 100 seeds today. So I really like the idea of being able to just water everything, water this at the bottom, and then let the roots suck up all of the water and call it a day, right? I have quite a few of these. They're not like the super sturdy ones. They are a little bit flimsy and they do crack if you bend them a certain way. But for what I need it for, it's been fine so far. They're pretty cheap, so it's not that much of an investment. And then the last thing that I use is my greenhouse, right? I've already talked about how it's not really for season extension, but it is a place to put my seeds so that they are not being extra watered by the rain. They are not being knocked around by the wind, and it does get quite windy over here. So someplace to cover your seedlings. Now, it does not have to be a greenhouse. You can leave your seedlings on the patio. So the difference is that if it rains, you are no longer going to be able to control the amount of water that your seedlings are getting. So that can be one of the risks of just leaving out your seedlings if it's windy and the seedlings kind of like blow away if they're small seedlings, or if the entire container just kind of topples over, which I've had happen quite a few times, and then you're not sure like if the seed flew away or what exactly happened with that. So I like having my little greenhouse, even though it's really not to keep the warmth in. It does do a good job of keeping the warmth in during the day, and it does have a little zipper that I can open up if it gets too hot, but mostly it's for keeping out the water and the wind. All right, so let's talk about how deep to plant your seeds. How do you know if you should be planting your seeds right on top of the soil and not covering them? How do you know if you should be planting them an inch deep? All of that good stuff. So if you have your seeds, right, I have some seeds packets here, and I just selected a few of them that require different depths so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I will start with some of the biggest, right? So bean seeds are something that I'm going to plant out, and on the back of the container, you will see here, right, it gives a little bit of information on this side. These are specifically Baker Creek seeds. So if you see here on the top, there's like a little row of information there, all right? And then here, I think here, where it says seed depth, right? So where it says seed depth, it says 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So that is how deep you're going to plant these specific seeds. Now, generally you can tell, and I'll go ahead and open these up so you can see. Generally you can tell these are pretty big seeds, right? So these ones are going to go about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and these I think are pretty much on the smaller side of bean seeds. I've seen a lot of bean seeds that are much bigger than this. But generally, the bigger the seed, the deeper is going to be planted so that it gets more time to grow strong and plant its roots underneath the soil. So now let's take another example, right? We have orange peach tomatoes, and tomato seeds are pretty small to begin with, right? And so they have a seed depth requirement right here, you can see it, of 1/8, right? So when it says 1/8, I'm not expecting you to take a ruler and measure out exactly 1/8, but what you do is you just kind of like measure out. What I do is on my finger, I just kind of measure out and I'll poke the little hole and plant these in. It does make a difference if you're planting them significantly deeper, right? I would never plant these at 1 inch or 1.5 inches, but if you're planting them not exactly at 1/8 inch, it's fine. They're not going to die, based on 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, anything like that. The same thing for all plants. All right, so now we are going to look at how many plants we are actually going to start, right? You don't ever want to go ahead and start your entire seed packet unless you know for sure that you will be using all of those seeds and all of those seedlings, because you're going to end up throwing them out if you don't use them. So what I have here, I have it on my phone. I didn't print it out, but it is my planting map, right? So I have my entire list of everything that I will be starting and exactly how many seeds I need to start for those specific plants. So this is my planting list, which I made on the Mapping Out the Garden video. You can go ahead and check it out. I'll link the link up above. But this is going to be everything that I need, everything that I am starting out right now to be transplanted out later into the garden. If you're not sure where you can find, if you're going to direct sow or if you're going to transplant out at a later time, your first step would be to look on the back of the seed packet. So let me find one that says here, we have eggplant, right? Our eggplant seeds from Baker Creek, and on the back here, it says, right, the description, it says plant out before the last frost, right? Start indoors before the last frost. So this means that you can go ahead and start it in a container and plant it out after the last frost has passed. So this is one that I will be starting today in containers. All right, so the next one I'm gonna go ahead and start is my tomatoes. So I have Roma tomatoes here, the same thing on the seed packet. It says you can start indoors, which means that you can plant it in a container, right? It does not need to be direct sown into the garden. If you have a seed packet that doesn't have that information on it, you can Google it. You can say tomato seeds, direct sow, or start as transplants. You can Google something like that and it will show up, whether something really does need to be direct sown or it can be planted out in a container. Now, I prefer to plant things out in containers first. First of all, you can start them earlier, all right, which is always a plus. But at the same time, when you see things grow in containers, right, when it comes up through the soil, there are going to be seeds that are not as strong as others. There are going to be seeds that, are more leggy. There are going to be seeds that die. The seedlings just turn yellow and die, for whatever reason. Maybe it's overwatering, maybe it's the heat, maybe, there's so many factors. But at the end of, when you plant out all of your seeds and you're starting to see them grow and they're getting big enough to go into the garden, you get to pick the best ones, right? So I always start a few extra seeds so that I can pick, and plus just in case anything does happen to die, but so that I can pick, out of my Swiss chard plants, which ones look like they're doing the best. And I'll take those best ones and I'll plant them in my garden so that my garden always has the best crops that I was able to plant out. I'm going to be planting okra, but I am not going to be starting okra today. And that is because okra on the back of this container, if you can see it right around here, it does say direct seed, right? So that means that you're going to take it and you're going to plant it directly into the ground. After the ground warms up, of course, you are not going to take this and plant it in a container. So this is not a hard and fast rule. Of course, you can buy okra seeds from the nursery and they're not in the ground. They're in little containers and you buy them and you transplant them out. But for the most part, if it says directly, on the packet to seed start in a container, then that's what I do. And if it says to direct sow, then that's usually what I do. Now, there will be some that I'm starting today that say to direct sow, but you just have to judge for yourself. Is this something that the roots are going to be able to survive being transplanted? So a lot of plants, their root system doesn't like being disturbed, which is why you would direct sow something, because you don't ever want to disturb the roots of something and then have them die later on in the garden. Now, if you want to start something that specifically says direct sow, then you can go on to Google and say, can I start okra indoors? Okay, and that would give you a more realistic expectation of whether or not you can actually plant it in containers. Can I start whatever plant it is indoors, or does okra need to be direct sown? Things like that. So you can judge for yourself and kind of use the guide on the back of the seed packet, but ultimately decide what you're going to start ahead of time and then be able to direct sow the rest of the things when it comes time. All right, that's a little better. All right, so this is my seed starting soil. I have everything in here. I'm gonna take my trowel. I don't really need scissors for right now, so I will put them right there. And I have my little labels. You will need something to be able to identify which seeds you planted. So I have that. And then I'm gonna open up my container here. And it is already full of seed starting soil. As you can see, light and fluffy soil, perfect for starting seeds. Okay, so I am going to basically set up my containers here. I am just gonna take each of my containers and I'm going to go ahead and fill it with my seed starting soil. So I am going to just fill it most of the way. Remember, you do want to leave some space to top it off once you have put your seeds in here. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll just get all of these prepared so that I can drop in my seeds and then cover them right after. Okay, so I have 24 containers prepared, and I am going to go ahead and start my grape tomatoes and my Roma tomatoes, right? So that will be enough for my garden and to give away to some family and friends, and I also do sell some of my starts. So I am going to cut these open, drop in one or two of the seeds. They kind of like are in clumps when they're not dried out, so I'm going to plant probably 4 or 5 in each of these containers, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing with my Roma tomatoes. Okay, and so tomato seeds are actually quite small, so I'm going to come here and the ones that I just planted out, I'm going to cover with just a tiny bit of dirt. I'm going to just take some like this, and I'm going to sprinkle it like this, and I'm going to sprinkle it over the top, and then I'm going to water them in and set them in my greenhouse. Alright, and then all of this extra, which is everything except the seeds, that will just go in the compost bin. You can plant this in with the tomato, but I just prefer getting it out of there. I don't know, I've always done it like that. So you can go ahead and slice them up directly and plant all of it with the tomato, but I just do it like this. So this will go in compost. So you want to make sure that all of your containers, all of your little seeds are watered all the way through. What that does is it removes air pockets from the soil, and it actually allows the seed to come in contact with the dirt, which actually starts, the process of germination, and it allows the roots to come out. So you need contact with the soil and with water, and then to feel the heat for the seed to actually start growing roots. Okay, so the next ones I will be starting are my Roma tomatoes. This is a seed packet that was left over from last year, so they should still be fine. These are from Burpee Seeds, and they're just regular organic Roma tomatoes. Now, I have determined that I would like about 6 Roma tomato plants to plant out in my garden. So, of course, I'm going to plant extra seeds, and they are quite small, so I'm going to plant a few in each container, and then when they get a little bit bigger, then the same thing as the grape tomatoes, I will separate them and then transplant them into their own containers, uppot them, so that every single one of them has their own. But for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and plant, I think I'm probably planting about 20 or so. I only need 6 from my garden, but I'm gonna plant extra, and then I also sell my plant starts in the community, so I'm gonna plant a few extra. Alright, and then I'm going to go and take my orange peach tomato and do the exact same thing. Okay, so my cucumber plants, these are Mexican sour gherkins, so they're like mini little cucumbers. I'm going to plant out 1 per container. These are actually smaller than regular cucumber seeds. They are tiny, tiny. Right, and these require 1 inch. So I am going to take quite a bit more soil this time. I'm going to take an entire handful, and I'm just going to layer it on pretty thick so that it is about 1 inch buried. Alright, so next up on my list of things to plant is going to be my Swiss chard. So I need 16 Swiss chard plants, right? Because I have 4 square feet and it is 4 plants per square foot. So I need 16. And these are ones that I can plant a little bit closer together, and I can also transplant them out into like separate pots or separate cups if I need to separate them afterwards. So this I'll probably plant, I'll do 4. I'll do 4 in each container. Because I've never had an issue with them growing too close, and then what I'll do is I'll just plant 1 of these cups per square foot. Alright, so now I'm going to fill up more of my little containers here. I'm going to plant out my eggplant, my zucchini, my yellow squash, cayenne pepper, and my lesia pepper. So all of these things are very heat tolerant, heat resistant, so I'm going to go ahead and plant these out. It is getting quite hot outside, so I'm going to try to wrap this up and get myself a nice cup of coffee inside. So I got all of my eggplant, 2 per container, and I'm going to cover it just lightly. They are very small seeds. Eggplant is actually one of my favorite things to plant because it actually produces a lot, and the flowers are like these little pretty purple flowers with little yellow centers. So I really like planting eggplant. I just like seeing how it grows, honestly, and I love cooking with eggplant, so that's always a plus. And I'm gonna go ahead and water these in. Now I only need 4 plants. I only need 4, but I am giving some to my neighbor. If you watch any of our other videos, then you know that we actually bought a piece of land not too far from here, and it's still zone 9B, still Central Florida, but we are actually in the process of clearing it out. So he's helping us clear out the piece of land, and we're helping him start a garden for the first time. So I'm really excited. Alright, so I'll be starting my zucchini. Now I only need 2 zucchini plants, but I'm going to plant out 4 for myself and some to give to our next door neighbor, and then I'm also going to plant out some to sell. So zucchini plants are actually quite large, and their seeds are extraordinarily large. Alright, so they are very big seeds. So these are going, I don't think it says on the packet how far they're going in, but generally I plant 1 inch to 1.5 inches or so. Now I already filled up my little container here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about that much of my finger, like right there or so, and I'm just going to poke a little hole. So I'm going to take 1 zucchini seed and put it in each of these holes, and then I'll just kind of close it back up, and that will be how I plant out my zucchini. The same goes for the yellow squash. You're going to do the exact same thing. They grow very, very similarly, so that's exactly how I'm going to do it. So I actually, I have my little seed markers, right, that says zucchini, but sometimes all of the containers don't fit in one of the seed trays, so I always like to make sure that these are all marked. I'm just going to put a Z on the outside of them. I do use these over and over again, so I reuse. These containers are from last year, so these are just regular red Solo cups. I try not to throw them out at all unless they are broken or cracked or something, in which case I don't reuse them, I'll just toss them, but in order to not, be wasteful, I'll try to reuse these. So sometimes I'll just take it and I'll scratch out the little mark, or I'll just wipe it off with alcohol or baby oil or something, just to make sure that I can reuse all of them. Okay, so instead of using these for my yellow squash, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use one of these. This was one that I can't remember what came in it last year, or the year before. I haven't bought seed starts from a nursery in a while, so I'm not exactly sure what was in this, but this is something that I just saved, or maybe somebody gave it to me, I'm not sure, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to plant out 6 yellow squash plants. So I only need 2. I'll plant a few extras, and then a few to give away. Alright, time for starting my peppers. So I'm going to go ahead and plant out my sweet peppers. They are the Lesia peppers, which I'm really excited about. They're supposed to be very sweet. It literally says intensely juicy texture, so let's see. It also says very high yielding, which is great. I love things that are listed as high yielding. It means that I am going to get more fruit for less effort. Alright, so I only have 10 of these pepper seeds in this packet, so I'm going to just do 1 per container. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and plant out my last item, which is my cayenne pepper. Now, I do not use cayenne pepper a whole bit. My family is Cuban, Alan is Puerto Rican, and we're not really into spicy food all that much. The only reason I'm going to be planting out cayenne pepper is because I like strawberry jalapeno margaritas, and I did not buy jalapenos, but somebody gifted me a packet of these cayenne peppers. Now, I know it's not the same thing, but my thoughts behind it are that I will go ahead and plant out something spicy and see if it tastes the same in my strawberry margaritas, so we'll see. So it just started raining, actually, as I was finishing up my seeds. I did manage to finish the rest of my cayenne peppers. Everything is in the greenhouse right now. It's not raining too hard, but it did start raining, so I had to get the camera and everything out of there. I managed to plant out all of my seeds that I am starting in trays to be out to be transplanted out into the garden in the next few weeks. So I expect most of those seeds to germinate in about 10 days or so. I think the majority of them should be up, and then about a month later I will be putting them in the raised garden beds and in their final homes. So in the next couple weeks, I will be ripping out the entire garden. I am planting everything out in a new spot this year. Nothing is staying where it currently is. I'll be ripping everything up, adding in more compost to the raised beds, and then transplanting everything out. And of course, I will take you guys along with me. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you had a good time starting seeds with me. And I hope that if you've never planted out your own seeds before, that this was helpful. And yeah, thanks so much. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!